rivers. In fact, it has been shown that thousands of years ago, the mighty was known to ionize the air around it, again increasing undertaking if the granite did not serve it. This is the weight exerted upon it, like tremendous insulating properties. This means that these casing stones would have perfectly insulated whatever was inside the structure. But the construction of the great simply Tesla's electromagnetic pyramid. Consider this electromagnetic pyramid and the design of the Wardenclyffe Tower, and compare them to the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. At one time, the Great Pyramid was covered by an outer layer of white tufa limestone, blocks which fit together so perfectly not even a razor blade could slip between them. White tufa limestone is unique in that it does not contain magnesium, giving it tremendous insulating properties. This means that these casing stones would have perfectly insulated whatever was inside the structure. Beneath the casing stones, the pyramid is built on a different type of limestone, one which is known to increase its electrical conductivity in direct proportion to the weight exerted upon it, like, for example, the weight of a pyramid. More inexplicably, the passages within the pyramids and their underground tunnels are lined with granite. This seems strange since granite is one of the hardest stones on Earth and thus one of the most notoriously difficult to work with. Further, there was no source of granite anywhere near the area, meaning the over 8,000 tons used in the pyramid had to be shipped there by boat from Aswan, some 500 miles away. This would seem like an incredible undertaking if the granite did not serve some specific purpose. Of course, granite is known to be slightly radioactive, filled with high amounts of quartz crystal, and as such is a well-known conductor of piezoelectricity. Think of a quartz wristwatch which can be charged by shaking. Further, granite is known to ionize the air around it, again increasing electrical conductivity. What could this all mean? These unusual materials used in specific situations. Consider that the Giza Plateau sits on top of a system of underground rivers. In fact, it has been shown that thousands of years ago, the mighty Nile River ran right past the pyramids. Is it possible that the pyramids were built to harness the piezoelectricity of the currents of these rivers? Could this explain the vast network of underground chambers and tunnels? Only 2 years ago, an international research group published a study in the Journal of Applied Physics, which showed that the Great Pyramid could concentrate electromagnetic energy in its internal chambers as well as under its base. Some thinkers have begun to put the pieces of the puzzle together. The theory has been described as follows. Water from underground rivers travels through the subterranean tunnels, up into the limestone through capillary action. From there, the construction of the pyramid creates an internal 3D field of harmonic vibrations and provides space to allow the energies to mingle within. The apex of the pyramid creates a spin field within its center, and once energy has entered, it careens off the 5 identical angles and is projected in a beam towards the center, where a pillar of the fused vibrations occurs. In other words, like Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, energy is drawn from the Earth and projected skyward. Historically, the Great Pyramid was topped by a gold cap. Gold is one of the most electrically conductive materials on Earth. The gold top then providing a path for electricity to shoot up into the ionosphere, much as with the 55-ton metal ball which topped Tesla's tower. The similarities between Tesla's plans for unlimited energy and the construction of the Great Pyramid, alongside Tesla's apparent obsession with the subject, have led many to speculate that the Great Pyramid of Giza was, in fact, an ancient power plant able to project energy which could then be harnessed at individual locations. Many have noted the appearance of obelisks throughout Egyptian culture and, in fact, around the world. Made of granite and topped with quartz, these obelisks could have acted much like Tesla suggested antennas could, tapping into the energy conduit produced by the Great Pyramid. It has been suggested that the history of an electrical Egypt is actually told in the Bible through the story of Moses. As one of the Pharaoh's closest advisors, Moses would have been privy to all the ancient secrets of Egypt, including, it could be assumed, the secrets of energy, if such secrets did exist. Some have suggested that the biblical Ark of the Covenant, described in the book of Exodus as a gold-covered wooden chest containing the 2 stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, is actually a metaphor for the superconductor at the core of the Great Pyramid which powered ancient Egypt. Rather than having received the 10 Commandments from a mountaintop, Moses instead took the Ark of the Covenant with him when he fled Egypt, perhaps explaining why, in possession of that which made Egypt great, Moses and his people would have been pursued so ruthlessly by the Pharaoh, as described in the book of Exodus. This may also add a new twist to the story of Moses parting the Red Sea. What type of electrical wizardry could this be a metaphor for? Interestingly, historical references show that Egyptian civilization reached its peak during the reign of Ramses II, the pharaoh at the time of Moses, before collapsing shortly thereafter. According to mainstream consensus, it is not so complicated. The Great Pyramid is simply a tomb, as many pyramids are believed to be. It has no secret purpose or metaphorical history, just another tomb. Except the Great Pyramid does not contain any of those things found in Egyptian tombs elsewhere. No extravagant artifacts or opulent wall art, no sealed entrances. There were not even any mummies. If not for these things, then for what? Could it really have been a power plant? Consider the mysterious Baghdad batteries. 2,200-year-old clay jars found near Baghdad, Iraq, described as the oldest known electric batteries in existence. Or consider that ancient Egyptian carvings and art consistently appear to depict giant light bulbs like the ones found in the Dendera Temple. In fact, Iamblichus described an experience in the underground tunnels and chambers below Giza as follows. We came to a chamber. When we entered, it became automatically illuminated by light from a tube being the height of one man's hand and thin, standing vertically in the corner. As we approached the tube, it shone brighter. The slaves were scared and ran away in the direction from which we had come. When I touched it, it went out. We made every effort to get the tube to glow again, but it would no longer provide light. The slaves were scared and ran away in the direction from which we had come. When I touched it, it went out. We made every effort to get the tube to glow again, but it would no longer provide light. But these types of stories of strange happenings around the Giza Plateau have been commonplace for centuries. During the 9th century, Egyptian governor Ahmed Ben Tulun described a goblet of glass discovered in a tunnel under the Great Pyramid, which was found to be the same weight when empty as when full of water. Centuries later, in the 1930s, Egyptologist Dr. Salim Hassan attempted to pump the water out of subterranean chambers under the Giza Plateau, only to find that after 4 years of pumping, the water level had not descended at all. The water, which would have been
our next guest, so Lucy Gilbert, what a great role you have in a
key to a pyramid power plant, seems to have unusual properties around the Great Pyramid. Perhaps even more bizarre is the story of Sir William Siemens, a British inventor who climbed to the top of the Great Pyramid in the late 1800s. Upon reaching the summit, Siemens was alerted by a guide complaining of a shrill, ringing noise in his ears whenever they raised their hand with fingers spread. Siemens raised his own hand and felt a prickling sensation spreading through it. Moments later, when he went to take a sip of wine, he received an electric shock when his lips touched the bottle. Puzzled, Siemens moistened a piece of newspaper and wrapped it around the bottle of wine to create a makeshift Leyden jar. Raising this primitive capacitor over his head and watching in stunned silence as sparks of electricity sailed through the air. A frightened guide tried to grab the bottle away from Siemens, who pointed the bottle at the man in self-defense. As he did, the man was thrown backwards onto the ground and knocked unconscious. It seemed almost as if a strong electrical current was emanating from the top of the pyramid. This occurrence remained unexplained for years, and in fact, it is no longer possible to climb to the top of the Great Pyramid, having been made illegal for purported conservation purposes. It is fair to ask, if the Great Pyramid is a power plant, how would the ancients have been able to create such a thing? Take a step back here. Even if the Great Pyramid wasn't a power plant, there are still many aspects of its existence which defy ancient explanation. Consider that the four corners of the Great Pyramid align perfectly with the four cardinal compass points, despite compasses not having been invented when it was built. Consider that when standing directly in front of the Sphinx on the summer solstice, the sun sets precisely between the Great Pyramid and the Pyramid of Khafre. Despite the fact the ancients could not have known this date, as the calendar year had not been determined. Further, consider that complex mathematical equations and concepts were used in the engineering of the Great Pyramid, equations like pi, which would not be discovered until thousands of years later. Quite simply, from a technical standpoint, as well as from a broader pool of knowledge, whether a power plant or not, the Great Pyramid, as well as many of the other pyramids across Egypt and the world, should have been impossible for the ancients to build. So, how were they built? Where did this knowledge come from, and what other knowledge might the ancients have been privy to? Here, the thoughts of Edgar Cayce, the American psychic who predicted the age of the Sphinx more than 50 years before science would prove him right, can again be examined for inspiration. In another of his prophecies, he claimed that a flying saucer was buried under the Great Pyramid of Giza. Perhaps this is not as outlandish as it seems. After all, many ancient carvings and cave etchings, in Egypt and elsewhere, depict what look like flying saucers. Perhaps this reveals the secret of how human beings could have possessed such seemingly impossible knowledge. They didn't, until it was brought to them by a group of extraterrestrials. Ancient Sumerian texts, which predate Egypt by thousands of years and, in fact, represent the work of the dominant civilization in the area at the time the Sphinx was actually built, tell the story of gods called the Anunnaki, which some modern scholars have interpreted as aliens visiting the Earth and intermingling with humans, bringing futuristic technology and incredible knowledge. Perhaps it was these Anunnaki who built the Great Pyramid as a power plant for their advanced society. Perhaps this even explains the existence of similar pyramids with similar subterranean networks constructed across the world by cultures who apparently knew nothing about each other, a sort of global power network set up by the Anunnaki. Interestingly, Sumerian texts speak of the secret abode of the Anunnaki as an underground place, entered through a tunnel, its entrance hidden by sand, and by what they call Huwana. His teeth as the teeth of a dragon, his face the face of a lion. Could the Anunnaki be the key to ancient knowledge long lost? To the unlimited free energy sought after by Tesla? To a different understanding of human history? And even to what the human race is? The short answer is yes. The longer answer is watch more to find out.